Hello and welcome back to Dubai Real Estate Unplugged, your go-to podcast for all things Dubai real estate. I'm your host, Luke Remington, and today we have a special episode lined up for business owners and investors looking to dive into Dubai's commercial markets. Before we jump into it, I'll let our guests introduce themselves. Daniel, you've been here before a couple of months ago.
I've done one podcast.
We've welcomed you back. So you've obviously done well enough on your first episode.
Excellent.
Bit about you, Daniel. 4 years in the game. Tell me a bit.
Yeah,
more.
just quickly started off in construction. Took an influence to business entrepreneurship, and I love the idea of talking with businesses on a daily basis. I've been with House for over 3 years now, going on 4, and I've really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. I didn't make you say that, so that's really nice to hear as well. Glen, 6 years. You've been here a long time. I remember in our, we've been going over 10 years now, just over 10 years, and you've gone through a few different offices as we've moved on, seen a lot of changes in the business, probably seen a lot of changes in the commercial market as well.
Indeed.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
And
very
bit about you, Glen?
Me, okay. As you said, 6 years in commercial right about now. Beforehand, I've been in entertainment, toured with some of the biggest bands in the world. Very different from where we are here, but still dealing with very high net worth kind of clients. Moved into operations and facilities management, and then came out here.
Okay.
Yeah, started out here.
If there's anything Glen's got, it's stories about his tours.
Trust me, the tours are very good.
Well, before this podcast has kicked off, we've already done quite a few stories, haven't we? So
I've had some very long smoke breaks with Glen.
Really? So you haven't kicked the smoking habit for the new year?
Once you're in it, and you're listening to these stories, he's a passionate guy. Right. It's very enticing.
Right.
You don't even know anymore.
Swiftly moving on from the nicotine talk. Daniel, interesting year for commercial real estate, 2023.
Definitely.
Going into 2024, how did the commercial market perform?
In 2023, I think I was on my toes most of the year.
Okay.
It was a very busy time.
Okay.
And, I'm going to mention the C word again, COVID. Things have just really hit their stride. And 2023, it was very competitive. There was massive demand for the luxury market, for offices in general, for people just setting up businesses. 30,000 businesses started up in 2023.
30,000
That's the numbers we've got in our commercial guide. So incredibly fast-paced year, 2023, yeah.
And interestingly, and again, you're in front of the clients, you're going out, you're meeting Mr. and Mrs. Jones, whoever. You're showing them over these commercial units. You're engaged with them from the start. What are they saying to you? Are they setting up new businesses? Is it a completely new business? Is it an add-on because they have somewhere located in Madrid or London and they want a different arm in Dubai? What are you hearing? What are they saying to you? Why is Dubai attracting them in?
Mainly, I work a lot with multinational companies and even small businesses who might have, say, one shop in London.
Right.
And the majority of them says, listen, I've got £1 and when I show and pay my tax, I have 50 pence.
Right.
It's always a similar story.
Okay.
You come over here, right, okay, now it's 9 pence I'm giving away.
Okay.
It's usually tax, but at the same time, you've got a massive global reach in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's a very strategic place to be.
Okay. So you're finding it, are you getting people speaking to you, but also saying, well, look, I need to speak to consultants regarding tax and all this kind of advice?
We don't talk too much about tax when we're qualifying our clients because they've already got teams who know all about it.
Right.
I just need to find out what really works for them. Why do they need an office in what location?
Okay.
How their business operates, what activity they're in, who's going to accept them and who's not.
Yeah.
Because landlords are getting quite picky these days. And one of the biggest trends we saw last year was real estate companies, developers, and they're calling us as well. I need an office space. Well, I cannot put you in this tower, this tower, this tower, this tower, and there's some of the big ones. we're going to have to target independent landlords.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
And why, you mentioned landlords are getting picky. Why are landlords picky?
Because in commercial, people want to, as an investment of themselves, I buy a commercial unit, I've got an opportunity to get a long-term contract here. I'd rather have a business in that's going to stay rather than, they're just starting up and, they might not be here next year.
Okay.
And when you can put into a contract for 3 years, fixed rates, it's more secure.
So you're finding that a landlord clearly would prefer to have a kind of global name and someone who's going to put a lot of money into their property, renovate it and pay on time.
Essentially, yes. It depends what they're sitting on. I've experienced landlords as well on the other side of the scenario who say, you know what, I just want annual contracts.
Okay.
Maybe I'll use it again. Maybe I'll sell it. It'll be easier to sell because there's a lot of people coming in who want to buy ready-made office units. Yeah. And just jump and get going.
Glen, when you're dealing with these tenants, obviously I'm from a residential sales background, and your client would come to you and say, I want a 2 or 3 bedroom house and I want it in this location. And 8 out of 10 times, the 2 or 3 bedroom house, they end up buying a 4 bedroom house, or they could have ended up buying a 2 bedroom house with an extra study room that they convert, but they wanted it in this area, but then because their friends are there, but they didn't know about the area next door that's half the price. And basically what I'm trying to say is they don't go for what they want 8 out of 10 times. They deviate and go across different roads and avenues and end up buying something completely different to the initial outset. When a commercial tenant comes to you, do you find they really do their due diligence beforehand and say, this is the tower I want, this is the floor I want, this is what I believe I want, because they're speaking to all different consultants, architects, their renovation guy, have they got more information and say, this is what I want and this is what I'm going to go for? Or do you find that they actually changed their mind quite a lot, and they could have wanted downtown, but they actually switched to the marina or DIFC, or is there much of a change with tenants in commercial?
It's actually very similar. Everyone comes with a romanticized view.
Yeah.
I want it here. I want to have this on this floor, like you said.
Yeah.
Explain, but generally when they give their requirements, we will always look at it and say, well, yeah, you can be here, but what if you tried down here?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, I've never actually looked at that before. So we take them down there to look at it and they think, this actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say things like, okay, I want to be in Business Bay. I want a view of the Burj Khalifa for some reason. And then when you do take them there and you say, well, there's a bit of traffic down there. Yeah. And then you say, why don't we try Expo? Yeah. And they say, oh, yeah, but it's far. But you say, yeah, well, you kind of live around the ranches or somewhere around there. So it's easier to get down there. It's out of the traffic, et cetera, et cetera. When you get down there, you take a look and you think, this is actually quite nice. Yeah. And they do change their minds generally, but it's about ticking those boxes and making sure it's all good. Yeah, sometimes it will come down to price if you're going to be basic like that, but a lot of the time it's just down to the practicalities and what's actually around. And that's the first thing that we actually try and match. I always try and put myself inside there. I put myself in their position and be like, how would that work for me? Yeah. And then once I help them realize that, then it's usually quite cool. I will say, yeah, we can change a lot of people's minds. You do
for the right reasons.
Yeah, for the right reasons. Yeah, like I've always said, the client is way more educated now. It's easier just to find out about more stuff than us actually just telling them. But when it comes to that face to face, and we actually say, look, I really think you should be down there, and then you state your case and you actually sell it to them, then generally they think that's actually okay. Yeah. You know?
Well, Google's very powerful these days, and there's a lot of information you can get, isn't there? You know, if you're looking to buy or you're looking to rent, or you're looking commercial, residential, leasing, or, you want to book a restaurant, there's so much information. The problem is with Google is you don't know how true it is. And obviously some people have a very one-sided view on life.
You can't find out how busy the elevators are on Google. I mean, you can read the reviews of the buildings, but who in a company has time to do all that kind of research when you've got guys sitting here who have that sort of general knowledge? Yeah. Me and Glen do a lot of brainstorming whenever we get a large client, or even smaller clients as well, just to think, why are they going to Business Bay? Who are they? What do they do? where are their staff based, and what would be more creative for them. We try and think of alternative solutions all the time, especially if, for example, client, as said, wanted something in downtown. I says, okay, what's it for? Real estate company. And immediately I was like, right, well, I've got very little stock in Emaar Square. I only want Emaar Square. I says, okay.
Why, Daniel? Sorry, why only do Emaar Square? What is it? It's prestigious, it's the name, it's glamorous. Is it because you're bringing clients there and all of a sudden a client coming there? It's like, I suppose, having that, you know, in the olden days, you know, you've got an office in Milan, London, and, you know, you harvest off these great cities. Yeah. Is this the same thing with Dubai, because it is glamorous and it is beautiful, and, you know, we want to be in Emaar Square.
Yeah.
We want, you know.
100%.
These are high stature areas. The rents are not cheap. And only the companies that can afford them can go there, more or less.
Which would be banks, would I be right in saying? Or
you've got
financing?
You've got everything, finance, banks, general trading, and anything, you know, high-end corporate that make money, more or less. But I think they want to be there, and this is an obstacle we come across a lot of the time, is if we're talking to really large companies with big CEOs who do a lot of networking, go out for a lot of lunches, then if I take them to Expo, there's definitely options there. In fact, I'm not even going to give that example, but for example, even Barsha Heights, like to get from Barsha Heights to a 5-star hotel in downtown, the kind of people that are hanging around downtown in DIFC are usually of a different caliber to those sitting in Barsha. And you've got all these high-end clubs, these high-end restaurants, you know, the locals congregating as well around the Burj Khalifa. These are where these CEOs do a lot of their networking in these areas. So I think that's why they're attracted to it as well.
You touched on Expo twice. I didn't even write down a question on Expo prior to studying this. But
Glen knows everything about it.
It is something that, you know, we've got 350 people in the company at the moment, and there's a few people that just talk Expo, infrastructure in place, city of the future, sustainability, etc. There are some big names that have relocated their commercial premises down to Expo, Glen. What are you finding is going on down at Expo, and why is it really turning heads? Are there people that have heard of it? Because obviously there was a massive campaign a couple of years ago with Expo. It is a bit further out, but anything that tends to be further out, or we talk about further out, within a year or so, it's not further out. That's because Dubai keeps going further out, and we keep building. So what is the appeal with Expo?
The appeal with Expo, one is the sustainability.
Okay.
2, the fact that it is so shiny and new.
Okay.
3, it sits closer to Abu Dhabi. And as Abu Dhabi advances closer to Dubai, and Dubai is advancing closer that way, and is close to the airport as well, which should be online 2027, 2028, say.
Okay.
It's a very attractive proposition.
Which companies have gone down there so far, Glen? You've got some big corporates that have gone down there.
Yeah,
right?
so Siemens has gone down there. Well, Siemens was there from the beginning.
Okay.
NG's gone down there as well. Who?
Are we allowed to say that?
Well, look, Apple's supposed to be going in there.
Yeah. Have they confirmed it, or is it rumour?
Nothing's been 100% confirmed.
You know what real estate agents are like, you know. Yeah. So is this the insider knowledge, or are you tying something up as we speak, Glen, that we should know about?
I wish I had that one, believe me. Apple was supposed to be going in there.
Okay.
Followed by Microsoft.
Okay.
As well, which is really good. So
it tends to be, like you say, quite glam. If you've got these names down there, you just touched on Emaar Square and the kind of the glamorous side of it, and the corporates and the CEOs, and, you know, there's a lot of, I can have
there now.
Okay.
What did the lady say? 3,000 people in Siemens?
3,000 people from Siemens.
A couple of thousand people are already working in Expo.
Okay.
And the inner dome, where the corporate offices are, is like 95% rented. Yeah. To businesses who are doing fit outs or are already there.
And what you say, that particular dome, what is there availability?
There's availability still. Yeah.
And can I do any business there?
Yeah, definitely.
We've got a client right now where we're trying to get ahead of terms.
Yeah.
Sorry, explain head of terms.
It's the initial stage of a contractual agreement. It just showcases your interest and confirms the deal.
Okay. And this is something we're touching on, because if someone is looking to open a commercial premises, and it is depending on their license and what they are trading to which location they can go. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
Are you saying that regardless of what trade I'm doing, I could potentially open an expo?
They're going to look at your they're going to look at your environmental footprint first of all. They want people who come in there who are just good for the environment, so to speak.
Okay.
They also want people who have that a certain level as well, so they can keep their prices up.
Yeah.
But mainly you can have a normal mainland license and operate over there, or you can take an Expo license also.
Okay. So the Expo license, Glen, what would the difference be between that and the normal license you talked
It's
about?
pretty much like a free zone as well. It's just an Expo license, just like you've got DMCC or just like you've got a DCC license or Dubai Commerce City license. It's very
And
similar.
a company set up business would be able to go into more with individuals on that, but I'm assuming the costs are we looking at kind of more prestigious to have a Expo license because we can send our corporate license to our clients that shows we've got an Expo license, and therefore we can charge higher
This
fees?
is when it comes down to doing business within the mainland of Dubai or overseas and things like that. Is usually the difference as to why someone would pick the free zone as opposed to the Dubai mainland license. But you've got to pick one, or open up another branch.
Okay. Would I be correct in thinking that having a landlord like Expo would be a nicer, simpler journey than having an individual? Because they're concentrating on it more as a business rather than with their heart. And like you were saying earlier, Dan, well, it's not really great if I sign a license and I think, well, the landlord's going to want me out in a year's time because then he wants to move back in there and do his own business, and then that doesn't work, and then I've got to find a new office, and it's a bit of a...
The thing is, when you talk to any large developer, property owner with their management team, you're walking into a place where they've got their contracts together, templates, everything's been legally looked over and corrected the way they want. So when you step into that, you better be prepared to get your own lawyer just in case, and just agree to the terms and conditions or negotiate if you can. A little bit less flexible, whereas independent landlords, there's a bit more word of mouth involved. People are more relaxed. Unless you've got something sketchy going on. But the landlords the contracts are much, much more simple.
Do you find that when clients are opening a business or taking a commercial premises from you, that they are wary or they're concerned with the contracts, whereas maybe the country where they may have set up business before, there could have been lawyers involved, there could have been larger contracts that you could be going into of 50 or 100 pages, regardless of whether you've read the clauses or not. And then you come to Dubai, what would your average landlord's commercial tenancy contract could be 2 or 3 pages, right?
Yes, I think
it's way simpler here.
People just like to keep themselves protected. And at the end of the day, what they usually miss out on is the security deposit. So they make sure and try and safeguard that as best they can. Because sometimes they're asking for, it's not just 10% security deposit. It could be 15 or 20 in some cases.
Okay.
But they try to keep themselves protected over that and make sure there's just liability's sake. Who's responsible for what? The larger landlords, developers, they will have all the liability set out in this contract, whereas with small independent ones, it's not as clear.
There's a lot of reliance on us in terms of guiding them from the first initial stages up until the point of trying to sign the contract. Then at that point, the large companies will say, I need to have my lawyer take a look at it. Meanwhile, the slightly smaller to medium-sized companies will be like, this looks okay to me. Let's sign.
And we've experienced deals like that. Remember when we did Emirates Financial Towers? A company that had their own contracts with a large holding company come in,
Yeah.
and those contracts were going back and forth like this for the best part of a month or so.
I think there was 62 changes. In that
Yeah,
one.
something.
62 changes.
62 changes.
It took a long time to get those two smaller offices.
But then I suppose if you're looking at some of these larger corporate companies, there is a ticking box exercise where they will have to do their due diligence and send it to their lawyer.
100%.
Their lawyer is probably working in a completely different jurisdiction and probably does not understand the rules and regulations of Dubai, but will comment and want certain changes that probably will not be.
That can happen as well, when they're coming from other countries.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was Dubai based, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It just the lawyers are getting paid, aren't they? They're getting paid to look over that and scrutinate it. So
And understandable, people want to, do business, and from the outset they want to do it properly. Glenn, what are the industries or areas that have dominated the market, let's say over the course of the last year? Because I've got to be honest, my crystal ball was really foggy for commercial, and I hate to say this because I think I've definitely been proved wrong, but going into COVID and the whole Zoom and the whole world saying the death of commercial, that's what they said. Well, we were seeing tower blocks. Why would businesses take offices when we've now done multi-millions of studies that show employees can work from home, are happier working from home, whether they're more productive? I still don't. I'm not a fan of it. But with all these studies, you're then getting commercial people, you're getting businesses saying, well, I can save my office rent and let people work from their own homes. I honestly didn't, there must have been people thinking, well, there's lots of bargains, and, at that as we're in COVID or coming out, sales of commercial was probably at its lowest point. It just seems to have gone nuts, really, isn't it? Yep. So what industries, I know I can see Daniel's about to throw something at me.
I just want to ask you, why are you not a fan of working from home?
Why am I not a fan? I think there's a few reasons. I think there's a lot of people that need to be around other people, Daniel.
Definitely. That's number one.
And I think, I'm not going to start going into stats and figures on mental health, but I'm sure that a lot of is based on people not getting out and probably hibernating or, just being behind.
Think of how many bachelors there are in Dubai who are living here in small studios.
Yeah.
I could not sit in that studio for the whole day, every day. I would go insane. I need it. I need to get out.
You have to get out.
I would say...
And some people are in worse conditions than I am. Some people are in worse.
100%. I would say I'm a workaholic, and just because Luke's a workaholic, it doesn't mean that Glen or Daniel or whoever needs to be a workaholic. However, I can categorically say, and I have an office set up at my home, so I will only look at it from Luke's point of view. But if I do work from home, there are a lot more chances of me wandering to the kitchen, or there's a lot more chances of me looking, at different websites that are not work related because I do not have someone wandering around. And I just being honest, feel there's a lot of people that maybe could turn on the TV and think, right, I'm going to have an hour's sport, and look, whether that's right or wrong, and I'm not saying everyone should be a workaholic, but productivity, I believe we should be around people and we should be discussing, and we are in this field. And, I think PwC have come out with something recently. I know there's, I go back to London quite often. There's a lot of tower blocks now that, there was people working, they called them Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, which, and then they would take Monday and Fridays off, but they're now back in. And you've got some famous figures, global figures around the world that have said it's not working for us. Yeah.
I think if people are given too much, they'll take more. Yeah. If you give 3 days at work at home, that they'll get used to it, and they'll find how to maybe abuse it without realizing. But
don't get me wrong, Daniel. I do think some people can.
There are other methods. When you're in a 9 to 5 culture and you're commuting every day, that gets tiring in itself. Right? Okay. Thursdays, guys work from home. Fridays coming in the afternoon or something. I think there's ways and means of working from home.
I speak to a lot of friends back at home, and I'll speak to them, and usually it'll be when I'm commuting to an appointment, because I've got time and we're on these busy Dubai roads and you're in a bit of traffic. So what can I occupy myself? Well, I can only listen to so many podcasts. So what I'll do is I'll just have a chat with a mother, sister, brother, or friend. The amount of times I speak to my friend and say, "What are you doing?" "I'm just taking the dog for a walk."
Yeah.
"Oh, you're not working today?" Yeah. I'm like, "Oh, right, okay." But he's still going for a 1-2 hour walk, and he's then going to have a lunch and that. And I'm just thinking, that wouldn't happen if you were in the office. Now, look, there's probably a lot of listeners that say, well, he's going to be productive after his 1 or 2 hour walk, after his lunch and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not convinced myself. And I think the world will see that in the next 2 to 3 years, that we will be back in. It wasn't really talked about as much. Anyway, we're digressing. Glen, industries, areas that have dominated the market. What are these tenants? What businesses are they setting up? What industries are we looking at? Which areas are we looking at? Where are the hotspots?
It's been varied. It's been very, very varied. General trading, like Daniel was saying earlier, definitely with the offices, general trading, and you don't really know what they actually do, because on their trade licenses, it's just filled with lots and lots of stuff which they do.
Big on holding companies with lots of different avenues of business.
Yeah, definitely. So whatever they're up to is whatever they're up to. But logistical companies definitely has increased a lot. So this is why we've seen a lot of the warehousing has actually gone. A lot of the retail spaces have actually gone as well. A lot of restaurants have come into the market, especially in the last 2 years. We had the Russia-Ukraine thing happen, and all of a sudden there were so many really high-end restaurants that came into the market, which no one's ever heard before, but they're actually here now and they're existing and they're doing well.
Yeah, now you're talking about like even general foodstuffs coming, the produce coming from certain countries because they're not trading with as many others. That all has its effect, and you'll find more and more general trading companies, Russian based, who are making those kind of transactions. They already were before, but
now they're pretty much here. There's a lot of tech companies and fintech companies also that have decided to set up here right now, because there's been a governmental drive towards that as well, which is really, really interesting, because as we kind of move into more digital currencies and stuff like that, to see so many of these tech companies come into Dubai is really interesting, and I think it does give us an indicator where everything is actually going.
All in all, I think the loudest one would just be developers.
Yeah.
I mean,
property developers.
Yeah, that's the loudest.
Yeah.
That is the loudest one.
Yeah.
Just developers, just they've come in, they've just said, right, I need an office to work from, but...
Which has a knock-on effect, right? Because if the developers are opening, they're selling homes. And if they're selling homes, it means that we've obviously, which we know from the population figures are growing, and those people are going to need homes, and they're going to need places to eat, and they're going to need healthcare and schooling, etc., etc. I was looking earlier, and DIFC now has 41,000, just over 41,000 workers, and 5,500 companies, and is on track to double GDP contribution by 2030. It's up 34%.
Yep.
Wow.
Is this because it's easier to do business in Dubai or open a business?
It's
in comparison, Glen, you go back 6 years, you've got to do a lot more to open a business than you have now.
Yeah, true. It is way easier. I just think my analogy is like Dubai is like your best wicket keeper. It's a safe pair of hands. So whoever comes here, they feel very safe. They know that they can exist and they'll be here for a long time. The IFC is a very interesting study because obviously it comes under European law. So a lot of the companies from Europe especially they feel safer coming there, and they can operate in a surrounding which they're more used to and more comfortable with. Then after that, they tend to kind of venture out and go to other locations once they understand the lay of the land.
Okay.
And the IFC is very welcoming.
Okay.
And very prestigious.
One thing, there's actually two things I want to touch on. Luxury. Luxury's gone berserk in Dubai. Yeah. People want to buy luxury property. They want branded residences, whether it's Mercedes 1 minute or it's Nobu the next. There is a big surge on branded residences. What are you finding is going on with the luxury segment in commercial?
It's the same.
It's tough to find.
It's very
Whereas
tough to find.
luxury and residential, okay, here's a new project with new units. You can try this luxury. Here's another one over here. They've got options.
Okay.
And in commercial, it's like, right, here's a furnished unit. I don't really think that's very good.
Yeah.
Well, the price is there. It's in the right location, but it's just not luxurious
It's not
enough.
luxurious
The,
enough.
the building is. I like the building, but that office, no. It's like,
Oh, so what you're on about the internal fit out. So the building,
Yeah.
the building suffice.
The,
but
the building can be suffice. There are some places where there's like, no, the lobby's not right for
Yeah,
us. Again,
lobby,
it's that first impression.
Of course.
You know, it's that bravado to a certain degree as
Of
well.
course.
You know, so you want your client to turn up and think, okay, right now you've already set the tone for that person to come in. Especially
Yeah.
when I speak to my clients, so you've set the tone for the person to come in. La la la. They come up to your office and then it looks absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
the building is massive.
It's key.
If the building looks good and it feels good when you walk in and the lobby's nice and grand,
Yeah.
then you've ticked a box right there. Cool. How did you park there? Was it easy enough?
True.
Right. Cool.
It's fascinating actually to watch and look back, and and certainly over the last kind of 10, 12 years that I've been in Dubai, the difference is when you are going into lobbies 12 years ago to going into lobbies today. It's chalk and cheese. So you would have gone into lobbies 12 years ago that were pretty dated.
We're going into 30-year-old buildings still.
Yeah.
Then we're seeing the same thing, but we're starting to see a trend of refurbishment.
Of course, this is what I'm seeing, right? You're seeing lights that are the prices of people's homes. People are spending, and this is what I can assume, that people are probably taking these commercial units and spending millions redoing them. They are doing this?
Yeah.
Definitely. In some cases.
Okay. So this is one thing I've touched on. Second thing I wanted to touch on, guys, is, are you hearing anything about corporate tax? Are businesses or tenants discussing this and mentioning it on their viewings, or is it pretty much like financing in Dubai, as ridiculous as it sounds, as interest rates up, no one really talked about interest rates, whereas the whole world seemed to be thinking about interest rates because their mortgage payments are going to be more. Dubai tends to really kind of, people just accept it and move on, and we don't really discuss it. What are people talking about corporate tax and the introduction of that very soon?
I stayed here over the Christmas period last year, so I purposely did that just to go out and meet with the clients who I haven't seen for a little while and just talk with them in general. And kind of ascertained, like, well, you said you was going to move, and what happened? Said, this year we've had to do fiscal planning. I said, so you've never done fiscal planning before? I said, no, it was the tax came in, and now my accountant, who we've had to employ, has told us, we actually have to have fiscal planning, and we have to make sure that the government knows what we're doing, etc., etc. So it has had an effect, and that was, I can only speak for 3 of the clients in particular who actually come up and, well, if that's that's 3 of them, they're already thinking about it. So we've got to finish out this year, and now we've got a plan for the whole of next year. So maybe it added to a slight slowing, maybe at the end of last year, which should have really been our hot period.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing.
Because these are, if you employ an accountant who understands corporate tax, then then your international game is already starting to open up from a financial point of view. You're right. Okay, he understands that.
Yeah.
He can give me advice on how I can get over into that country and what their legislations are like. This guy's going to understand it, as opposed to an accountant in Dubai who's never really bothered about corporate tax before.
True. And I also think, because it is so new, obviously government needs to get used to it, as well as the clients, the businesses need to get used to it also. So we're all kind of moving together, and it will happen though.
But let's get this straight. It's not slowing down businesses opening.
It's not
Dubai,
slowing down, no. I just think
see.
there's just been a slight delay while everybody understands.
I think it's great, honestly.
It's
And people, as a business owner, 9%. Imagine what Dubai can now achieve with all these businesses paying 9%. I think it's phenomenal.
I think for Dubai, definitely, like they're taking one step away from relying on the oil money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's what this kind of tax is for.
Yeah.
It's like, what are they going to do with it next? You're right. Yeah, for sure.
Guys, I must apologise because I said 2 things, but before we wrap it up, there's a commercial guide which has recently been released by the team here at House & House. Daniel, what can listeners expect to gain from this guide? It was I think it was over 20 pages, so there's a lot of stuff in it. Any quick points on that?
It's very good for a general overview, but 2, we've got quite a few points on even what we've touched today. where the market's going, what we've experienced so far, what to expect, and we all love facts and figures.
And it's in there.
And it's in there, yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. A lot of thought, care and dedication. And it's not a lot of real estate waffle.
It's very honest.
It is, yeah. And that's what I think what we try to get across, not just with the guide, but even with the podcast is it hasn't always got to be good. And it isn't always good. So let's just be honest about it. That's what people want to hear. And it is difficult to hear honest advice from a real estate. I think that's unfortunately the problem is people like another person that's going to spout off how well they're doing and how good things are, etc. But sometimes it would be good to see those facts and figures so people can have a look at the commercial guide. Thanks for joining me today, Daniel and Glen, and to our listeners. If you'd like to find out more about Dubai's commercial market, our new guide, which we discussed, is linked in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes coming your way soon. Thank you and goodbye.